Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kelly Fegan, and I'm a Director of Client Services for QatarLyst, a predominantly London-based company offering an electronic marketplace for the London and European insurance and reinsurance markets. I'm here today to talk to you about our company and to give you a very quick summary of 12 years' experience in trying to introduce an electronic infrastructure to a 300-year-old insurance market. So I'm going to quickly cover these topics one by one. Now, first of all, we are not a software house. We're not Microsoft. We are a service company, and we provide our technology as a service, so it's shared amongst our users. We are principally a paperless trading service, enabling insurance brokers, seeding companies, and insurance companies to trade insurance and insurance and reinsurance. We describe that as an e-market. In London, we're recognised as thought leaders and change makers, and as I'll explain shortly, we have made significant changes to the insurance industry in London. We're based in London, obviously, but we also have offices in the Middle East, and together we have more than 100 people. We build our own technology, but our company is actually managed by insurance professionals, so we're not technology people that are trying to sell to the insurance industry. We actually are the insurance industry. We're well funded. Our shareholders are the state of Qatar, who acquired a company called RI3K in 2000. And RI3K started trading in, we were acquired in 2010, but RI3K started trading in 2000. So, as I said at the beginning, this has been a 12-year journey. Where we are presently is we are active. It's a very live marketplace. There are more than 300 firms and 7,000 individual professionals using the service every day. What it provides is an ability for users to save time, money, and also to produce and retrieve accurate records quickly. The service itself is hosted through the internet on a Tier 1 network, so it's cloud-based. And for anybody that was lucky enough to pick up one of these, I've got a couple left here, there's a demonstration of what it actually looks and feels like on these. But nevertheless, it provides the full workflow process from creating a risk folder to finding a broker to requesting quotes, submitting information, building contracts, receiving quotes, offering business, accepting business, and administering that business, all electronically through a controlled best practice workflow. It supports every type and class of insurance and reinsurance, so it doesn't prejudice anything, but it is mainly wholesale commercial insurance and reinsurance. As a result of the workflow, data is produced in an ACORD structured format and can move between one system and another without any rekeying. And also it produces a reliable, permanently available audit trail. Our processes have been validated because the system has been refined over the years, and there have been tens of thousands of policies placed electronically. It is software supported as a service, which means that everybody that uses it uses the same version, albeit it can be branded, which means that everybody shares the cost. It's a much more efficient way of distributing technology. The London market, for those who don't know, is a leading specialty market. It acts globally. It's much smaller than most people think. It's roughly 50 billion of premium transacted each year, which is, to put in context, about half of what the EU have just given to Greece as a further bailout. The market itself is dominated by three brokers, Aon, Marsh and Willis, in that order, who between them control more than 70% of the business. The London market is a subscription market which basically works by sharing risk. So each market shares a portion of each risk and therefore a portion of each loss. And as a result, they come together very cleverly as a marketplace. However, it is a physical face-to-face market, so it is literally paper being walked from one place to another and stamped, and then to another underwriter, another stamp, another underwriter, another stamp. So when we're trying to introduce our technology, which replaces that manual process, there are cultural barriers, and the people we're trying to convince to use this new way are convinced that we're trying to remove their jobs. It's not the case. Face-to-face is crucial for the negotiation, but it's not important for the consummation of the contract. That should be done electronically. London market has a very long history of failed attempted reform. I've been in the market for 27 years, and one of my very first jobs was dealing with reform. That's basically all I've done for 27 years. You could say I've not done a very good job. I might argue with that. What the London market has done well is across the market is standardised its contract forms. So its templates for contracts have been standardised into a market reform contract, and the London market has also adopted Accord standards, which means that they can talk, their systems can talk to each other easily. Slightly painful at first, but very worth the effort at the end. And now, after much effort on our part, London market is also adopting a central infrastructure for placement, which is our system. Okay? Bringing together more than 200 companies is a difficult task, and often we're told, or we say, that London moves at the speed of the slowest, and with 200 companies there are some that are very slow to move. But it's a very important industry to the UK. In London alone, insurance employs more than 40,000 people. So I'm going to quickly take you back to 1999, where the internet was born, effectively, for commercial purposes, and everything was .com, except insurance. And the chief executive of a company called Brit, who you may recognise as sponsors of the England cricket team, they put together a fund to invest in an electronic Lloyd's. They decided that what they needed to do as an industry was to move data, not paper. The small company was funded, and within a year or so we'd created an office in London and in Singapore, the idea being to create electronic markets in two parts of the world. The Singapore office was closed a few years later. We weren't the only company trying to move the market. There were 27 others. Most of those were focusing on parts of the market. We were the only ones focusing on the whole of the market. So after a year, we had produced a very basic system that we thought would be of interest, but actually, because of the dot-com bubble bursting, which caused most of the other competitive firms to close, there wasn't that much interest in what we were trying to achieve. Then came 9/11, which actually triggered the thought process, or proved to the seeding companies that they didn't actually know where their reinsurance assets were. They had no idea other than the brokers. And in fact, some of the brokers didn't have any idea either, because none of it was put into a database particularly. Importantly, we weren't the only ones. Swiss Re and Munich Re combined at the same time to launch a system called INRION, Insurance Meets Reinsurance Online, and then Lloyd's shortly afterwards themselves created this thing called Kinect. And both of those were directly competitive to us, and most of the people in our market told us that, and by then that there were only about 30 employees in our company. Lloyd's and Swiss Re and Munich Re would be too competitive for us to compete with. But nevertheless, we did keep going, and in 2003, the Swiss and Munich product was closed after a massive £100 million investment, which made it even worse for us, because there was now proof that Swiss and Munich couldn't make this happen. But actually, the way that they approached it was different from us, so we kept going. And despite the cultural resistance to change, and despite the difficulty of creating a market where you have no buyers to buy from, no buyers to sell to and no sellers to buy from, we did manage to break the catch-22 by Aviva putting their most important treaty on the system, which enabled 45 companies to sign up. So it took 4 years before we actually traded our first risk. But nevertheless, it was groundbreaking, and it did trigger some activity, and more cedants came to us. But those cedants weren't enough to make the company a commercial success. The time between prospect and selling was too long, and we, in the meantime, were running a very expensive business. Despite that, the confidence was still high, and our shareholders invested more money to make the extra functionality that we needed to focus on the brokers, because we realised that the brokers are gatekeepers. They own the business. They decide where the business ends up. So as a result, we've changed the system to become more broker-friendly, and in 2007, Aon UK took the system as their front office, and that revolutionised the London market. Within a year, we had 4,000 policies put on the system. We had been the first company to implement the Accord data exchange, and we had a panel of about 150 to 200 firms. By 2009, we'd grown to 2,000 professional users, but the volume of traffic was not sufficient to make the company a compelling investment. It was still too slow. Even though it's further than anybody else put together has ever come, it was still too slow. And we had our own catch-22. We needed more investment, but we didn't have enough customers to get the investment. Nevertheless, the QatarLyst, who are the insurance vehicle for the state of Qatar, were looking for a system like ours and a company with expertise like ours to develop in the Middle East. And with deep pockets and a long-term investment plan, they invested in our company and actually acquired all of the shares in 2010. That enabled Aon to come back onto the system more fully, and also, crucially, for Marsh. So Marsh then signed to the system, and by now you've got Aon and Marsh, the two biggest brokers in London, and therefore the whole London market listening. Also, by now, the system's 10 years old. And we decided we had to build a new system that could take advantage of modern techniques, social media, for example, but also be significant enough to scale to support the whole global industry. So we started designing that. We released some extra functionality and continue to grow the user base. And right now we have 7,000 insurance professionals using the service, and around £600 million of premium has been transacted so far. Just to show in visual respects the change, this is a screen from our very first version back in 2000, and you can see how dated it is. And this is a screen which is the current version. So it's far more modern, and this is touchscreen friendly, etc. So in terms of measurable benefits to London as a marketplace, and therefore any marketplace, the system does save individual people up to an hour per risk. So if you've got 100 risks, you could save 100 hours. The time to receive responses from insurers is significantly reduced by days. People respond quicker. You all deal with email, you know how urgent email feels. It's the same on a system. Crucially, the data entry errors have been reduced down to less than 1% from an estimated 35% error rate. And in fact, Hiscox told us only yesterday that they've completed their analysis and their use of our system has reduced their error rate by more than 85%. Aon enjoy a reduced premium on their errors and omissions insurance, and they reduce the actual number of incidents because there is no ambiguity on the system. The brokers themselves have access to all markets, so anywhere in the world. If they're on the system, they can be accessed from one screen. The audit trail is real-time and immediate, so as soon as something's updated for one person, it's updated for everybody. And because it's outsourced software and help desk, there is no need to install anything or maintain anything. It keeps the costs low. The documentation that can be sent to customers is much improved from an email or a Word document or a fax document with handwriting. And we store all documents indefinitely, so there's never a need to worry about losing anything. On a longer-term vision, one integration to our system means integration to everybody on our system. So there's no need for peer-to-peer integrations, so that instead of, if you deal with 400 companies, you don't have to connect to 400 different computers, you connect to our one, and then you are connected to everybody else's. And being on the internet, obviously it works across jurisdictions, so if you're a multinational company, you can have teams working together on the same screen, regardless of where they are. So I'll quickly flick through this, but current users, as I've said, are 7,000 individuals, which we predict to grow to 10,000 next year. Aon UK and Wholesale and Aon Benfield Reinsurance use the system in London. They're extending that out to their territories, including Singapore. Marsh are just beginning to use the system now in London, and that will extend to Guy Carpenter. BMS have used it for a few years, and they're still the major global cedants buying their reinsurance through the platform. There are 500 underwriting companies, if we include the small companies that are in the Middle East. And next year we predict 60,000 policies to be transacted. And it might sound a lot, but actually that's a very small portion of the volume out there. There's around 500,000 policies in London transacted each year. The Tema is the London's Market Exchange Limited. Basically, it's the data hub that connects all of the integrated companies. We're connected to that, and we have a working group of suppliers who also connect to that. So we've got a very good relationship with the back office system suppliers. We touch 42 countries. We've got all of the Bermuda market on the system, most of the European, some of the MENA, and most of the Asia-Pacific companies. And we've got a market-wide user group with a subgroup which has a sole focus to design the optimal process, so the best working practice on the system. I don't have enough time to go through this, but Aon would be an excellent example use case to prove why a pan-market system can benefit everybody. Okay, this is actually the paperwork that they distributed when they first started, and it explains all of the benefits that their users and their markets will get and why they're doing this. The overall benefits, one version of the truth, everybody shares the same contract. You don't have your version, they don't have their version, it's the same contract, it's updated for both sides. It is a best practice environment, so by using the system, everybody's doing the best practice. You cannot deviate, there's excellent compliance controls in there. There's unambiguous contractual status, so there can be no doubt if you're on cover or off cover, holding covered, etc. The rest of these benefits I've already covered, so I'm short of time, so I'll flick through. But perhaps just make it clear that this has a roadmap for full integration. So the basic service is through a browser, and the advanced service is from a back office system directly. The carriers get extra benefits. Mostly, one of the strongest is second signature. So in the case of two signatures, the risk can be accepted with two signature. Everything's immediate, and there's management information that sits alongside the database. Carriers can also use it to buy reinsurance. Buyers and brokers have access to their approved carriers, so the system can restrict the carriers to only those approved by that broker as being a business partner, but they can all be accessed from one screen. Again, we manage the integration for brokers rather than peer-to-peer, and the cost again is shared. So, our business model is to charge a license fee for the brokers and buyers, but on the underwriter side to charge a transaction fee. So that's how the system is paid for, but everything included is free, which is training, service desk, client management, and any upgrades to the system. So it's a very well-known cost, and the cost to build a proprietary system like ours is significantly higher, around £50 million. So it's a very cheap way of sharing that cost across the market. Some statistics here, which you probably can't see. I know you might be able to see. I'm not going to go through these because you're probably already bored, but what they're showing is that the quality is increasing, and the volumes of users and policies bound is increasing significantly. We're expecting a tenfold growth in traffic in the next 2 years. In the future, we're releasing a brand new platform. We call it Open Platform. The reason for that is because it's designed in such a way to be open to all other types of systems and services using APIs, programmable interface. It's taken 2 years to rebuild. It's cost £20 million so far. But what it will do is enable the global insurance industry to take advantage of the infrastructure. I won't talk through this slide, but basically this is just illustrating the distributed pattern of the insurance industry. Some people only deal with their own markets, some deal with specific markets, some deal across markets, and some deal with everybody or anybody. When it comes to designing a flexible system, this is typical thought process that we have to go through to make sure that it's constantly scalable. So, we've learnt lots of lessons over the last 10 years. I thought I'd end by just summarising a few of those. The first is very important. It doesn't matter if it's 300 or 3,000 or even just 3 years. Changing practice is really hard. People like to stay the same. So in Lloyd's, which is, as I said, it's a physical marketplace, changing the behaviour is very, very difficult, and it requires patience. If you introduce something new to somebody, you would expect to get the benefit right there. Actually, the benefit on a market-wide exchange like ours only comes when everybody uses it. So, you need to be you need to be patient and accept that in the early days it's not going to add much value, but in the future days it will add lots and lots and lots of value. So, narrow adoption provides almost no benefit. In other words, there's no point adopting this system for, say, marine treaty business. It gives you hardly any benefit. In fact, it gives you pain. Adopt it across the board. That's what we've learned. Accord standards might take a bit of time to align your standards, your risk types to the Accord standards, etc. But once it's done, it works forever, and it saves a huge amount of time, and it makes everything efficient. So I would encourage everybody to use Accord from day one. Technology, it moves faster than we can install it. So as soon as we've built it and release it, actually it needs to be changed already before your users have even used it. So we wish we had built the open platform maybe a year earlier. I've already mentioned this, buyers are the gatekeepers, just respect that and engage with them first, because they're the ones that have got the power to buy. Shareholders need to be understanding, because it's a long journey and an expensive one as well. And we're very lucky in that respect. Competition's a good thing, despite the cynical view when Lloyd's and Swiss and Munich established a competitor offering. Actually, what it did was it validated what we were trying to achieve. It didn't outcompete us, it validated, it proved that there was a requirement. Okay? And the last thing, above all else, customer service is everything. We wouldn't have been this successful if we hadn't been excellent at customer service, even prospective customers. So that's our final lesson learned. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Спасибо большое. Есть вопросы у кого-нибудь? У меня один вопрос есть. А считал ли кто-нибудь, скольких людей оставила без работы электронификация лондонского рынка?
Was that a question? Sorry, you might have to say that in English.
You have to pick up the earphones so we can
How
many unemployed employees you've got in the result of the change of the system? That's the question.
In the what decision?
In
London.
London market.
In our company?
London market.
Oh, 40,000. 40,000.
Спасибо большое.